about the music. Yes.
Big sigh. Big sigh.
Yes, King George. Broken Heart Whispers. Before we introduce our guests, I'm Shells from Tacoma. Google it.
Tacoma. That's at least 3. Depends on what we're drinking. I don't know if I'd be quite that far along just yet, but we'll have to do one for me too.
Yeah, okay. And then we also got Spider in Ohio.
Sure do, and I'm pretty dry here apart from the coffee, so if anybody wants to send me a care package, that'd be great.
We can go in a different direction with that one. And we got King George out there in Australia. Really quickly, though, the point of the talk show, if you're just tuning in, I got 25 people listening. Hi, people.
Hi.
The controversial talk show is not about arguing both each other, so there's no fighting in there unless people decide to fight, which, why, it's stupid energy.
What? I think you're totally wrong. Controversy.
We talk about music and what's important towards the band, and mostly all of these musicians that you're talking to are all independent musicians across the world.
Yes.
And they have bones to pick about the music industry. And that's what we're basically talking about, and of course playing their music. And we have King George, who is our guest from Australia, and later on we'll talk to Zirp from Germany. And we came in listening to King George's Broken Hearted Whispers. So, go ahead, George.
That song was written around a time where there was a lot of people around me who were breaking up and divorce and all that, and it just captured the moment of what was going on around people who were close to me going through difficult relationships and it's a pretty sort of sad song, but also kind of finishes with a touch of positiveness about saying how, you've got a kind of a heart that's been broken in the end, and when it's mended is in the end stronger. So, because it's done some, gone through the motions, and it makes you stronger overall. So yeah, that's as much as I can try and explain. I hope everyone's still there now after all that.
Oh yeah. I mean, if they're still with you hearing me jabber, I'm pretty sure they will.
The shows usually just get better as we roll on, so we probably have more people than when we started, which is good.
Yes. We started with 1 listener, and now we're 25, so...
Started at the bottom, now we're here.
And now, we have questions in the chat room. Spider, you want to do the chat room?
Well, let me take a peek here. I've got things minimized because I was trying to kind of mitigate the static on my end here. So let me.
Yeah, they started asking questions in here, and then Victoria and Defected started chatting. So I don't know which ones are the questions or were them chatting. But I learned that Stephanie K was figure skating, classic ice skater. So that was kind of cool. Learn about her.
Hidden talents.
Mm-hmm.
She made a comment earlier on, about 12 minutes ago, that she's learned that it's very beneficial to study other bands and genres, and she does it more to learn about music production and stuff, which is good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
that's something we as musicians we don't think to do all the time. To listen to other music, not necessarily just to listen to it, but to also kind of study it, which, sometimes it's difficult for us because we can take too much and make a song that sounds a little bit too much like somebody else's music if we're not paying attention, because, you like it so much, you want to express it, but done right, it gives you a little bit more inspiration.
That's right.
And go ahead.
Speaking of that concept, off the top of your head, can you name maybe one of your songs that might have some kind of hints that that they were influenced by something else? Like, can you hear in one of your songs, oh, I wonder where I got this vocal quality for? Oh, got it from this band right here.
I think there's a song on the album, on the last album, called called No Comment, and I actually play a Greek instrument on that. My parents are from Greece and immigrated here in Australia, and so I've got a heavy influence in the European music, especially Greek music. It's kind of embedded in me from growing up listening to Greek music. So for that song was really driven the guitar riff at the start, which is played on a bouzouki, which is a Greek guitar. I played it with that, and that's something for the first time, a really direct influence on my music, as well as during that song towards the end I sing a couple of Greek words. I slip a few words in there. So I think that's something that's a song that's been really directly influenced from a different style of music. And of course a lot of the songs, some of the guitar riffs are obviously influenced a lot by some of the other bands that the guys listen to. And vocally, I just try and do my best, but influenced by a lot of different people. I love female singers. Dusty Springfield, Fleetwood Mac.
Ooh, yeah.
So Stevie Nicks, and of course Lana Del Rey. I love. So I've actually had a really good connection with a lot of female singers because I really, really love the way they do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Stevie Nicks. Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Well, you'll never get someone like that again. I mean, you look at the female artists now who... we talk about artists really trying to do things to get attention. You've got, people like her, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned Dusty Springfield, some of the, I'm not sure if you've got Tori Amos, a few others who didn't, have to roll around half naked in a video clip to get the message across. These women were unbelievable, unbelievable artists and singers, and some of them still are that are alive. But Sinead O'Connor as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not to say people like Beyonce are not talented and amazing. They are. But,
right.
Yeah.
I think you did do that one. Never mind. I think you did Victoria's comment. It's difficult when kids before the net, my family, listen to classic, which she loves, and occasionally 60s, 70s, and top 40s. So when, I'm not sure you mentioned that question, so I apologize if I'm redoing it.
No, go ahead.
But how Victoria kind of made a point, I will reread it again. Victoria says, it's difficult when you're kids before the internet. My family only listened to classic and occasionally 60s and the 70s and the top 40. And then, which is true, because that's all you ever listened to was just what your parents listened to. And that's what you grew up with, because I listened to nothing but 60s and 70s. That's what my mom always had on the radio, because that's all I knew. So I knew the Beatles. I knew the Herman Hermits. And growing up, you get into top 40 and you start getting your own taste of music. And then later on, people influence you on different things too. Like, for example, was into these different musicians. I started listening to Enya because a friend of mine was listening to Enya, and I just got influenced by her. So it's kind of interesting how you are raised in a certain way, and then you kind of ventures out of that direction. And then when the internet came about, you get more inspired and more influence on different kinds of music. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, how lucky... Well, I think our generation here is lucky and unlucky. Lucky that the internet's here, that they can look things up and have different options. But if you're living in this day and age and you're only listening to the top 40... I think it's not a good thing. I mean, from what I understand, people who were growing up in the 70s would listen to the top 40, but what the quality and the different styles of music that were out there, if you had Fleetwood Mac on the radio, bands like that aren't on the radio anymore, especially down here in Australia. If you look at the top 10, it's just all, R&B and sort of the big singers, but you don't have, U2 aren't on the top 10 anymore. You don't have Guns N' Roses. You don't have Pearl Jam, in the top 10. You don't have, I don't think, in my opinion, the same quality you may have had back then. That's just my perspective.
Yeah,
well, somebody,
you're right. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm trying to think who said it. There was a rock musician, relatively famous one, that talked about it right now. It might have been that same thing that I read about from the lead singer of Machine Head, was that they were talking about how rock music